Hello, you wonderful people. So this video, I'm not 100% sure what it's going to end up being. Obviously, I typically haven't done a lot of these videos in a very long time, but this particular video, I want to talk about kind of a point in my life. Specifically, it's in correlation with a relationship in my life, a relationship I had when I was a teenager. It was from when I was 15 till I was 18, but then me and this person stayed friends until I was like from 18 to me about 22 to 23. And like, if you're curious, I'm 31, so it's like, right, why am I so caught up in something like from well over a decade ago in totality? Well, the thing is, like, there's just a lot of complicated things associated with that, like good and bad. And just to me, I want to talk about this relationship because I've talked about it quite a bit over the years because there's so many life lessons I learned from it, which I'm like, I know it sounds like BS because like, oh, I'm a teenager, but it's like there's a lot of stuff I learned about myself and how I interact with the world and people from this relationship. And it's just, once again, I don't know what this video is going to be. You know, I have final say, so I'll probably be able to, I determine what I get to keep in and what I don't keep in. And it's also the thing of whatever this video ends up being, you know, I am putting it on the internet, so I have to, you know, I don't know if I'm making this video just to like word vomit, which is a possibility, or hear other people's perspective on it. I don't think that's really the case, but I also have to accept I'm putting it on the internet, so I'm gonna hear other people's perspectives because of their experiences and their circumstances and how they interact with whatever it is I end up ultimately saying in this video. So I just have to take that as it is. But the reason why I think about this relationship often, and like, I don't know what this says about me. I don't know if it's a thing of, oh, I'm trying to recapture this relationship, of this was the one that got away type of situation. I don't know if it's even that. It's just, this relationship was fundamental to me in a lot of capacities because I've talked about this in the past. Like this relationship, it was with a lovely young woman named Ashley, who was the first girl I ever fell head over heels for. The fact is that prior to her, I had two previous relationships, were good, which, you know, had their own complicated circumstances, some of which was on me, and we'll end up I'll talk about that more as this goes on, I'm sure. But with this particular relationship with Ashley, it was the third relationship I'd ever been in, and it was the first time I'd fallen like so head over heels. Like this is like, oh my God, I want to talk to this person literally every day. I want to hear the sound in their voice every day because of like, I'm just this madly in love with this person. And maybe it was young puppy love. I don't want to lessen it in any way because it was still so fundamental to who I am at my core in a lot of ways, and it helped me grow that relationship, you know, in the relationship, post the relationship and stuff like that. But so I don't want to just like be like, oh, you know, it's just puppy love. So I don't want to attribute it to that, but other people could. And once again, I can't fault anyone for feeling that way or having that perspective on it. But you know, I don't talk about it often, but this was like also like the first like long-term, long-distance relationship I had. Like this relationship ran for 2-ish years, and she lived in Florida, I live in North Carolina, and it was the first time I'd ever had that situation in itself into that capacity and being so into someone in that way. But you know, and it was just, you know, like just like I said, that person you can just like, oh my God, I want to hear you talk about your day. I want to hear the sound of your voice, like the fact is what music you're into, and let's have some nerdy conversations. Like I'd never really like connected with anyone like that. So that's what made that situation so unique, especially at that time, because I'm me. I keep to myself. That was something then. It's even more so true now. Just like I'm very much a kind of shut in, keep to myself. I don't really interact with people. But that was also like one of those things I learned from this relationship, is that I had some very bad habits, and those bad habits have still like continued to radiate like even to today. But like one of the things I learned from this relationship was, and it was something she called me out for, and I remember talking about this years and years ago, is I have this bad habit where I say it doesn't matter. My key phrases of I'm okay, I'm fine. They're just like, they're almost like automatic responses when people ask me, how are you feeling, or are you okay? You know, or if, oh, is something bothering you? And that's where these 3 magic words, it doesn't matter, came up. And she was so pissed at me one day. She kind of not yelled at me, but got like really aggravated with me because she's like, I'm tired of you constantly saying it doesn't matter. It does matter. Like I'm not very good at like telling people how I feel. Like when it comes to nerdy stuff, I'll tell you how I feel all day long of, oh my God, this touched my soul, it brought me to tears and this and that. I can really open up when it comes to like insignificant stuff. Significant because of like how it made me feel, sure, but in like on a personal level, you know, it's nerdy stuff. It's just, you know, it's a thing. It's a TV show. It's a book. It's a movie. It's a anime, manga, yada yada yada, so on and so forth. Right? I can talk about that, but when it comes to personal relationships, you know, I'm not good at telling people how I feel. I don't like being vulnerable with people. I don't know why. Maybe it's because when I was younger, I was a crybaby, and now I associate with that. So I'm like, I don't want people to see me vulnerable. And because of that, I bottle so much up. That was like the point of like, she also pointed out another defense mechanism I have. Like, I joke about everything. I never took something seriously just because it was like, it was just my way of dealing with things. I would joke like, oh, I'd like anytime shit got like for real, I just kind of joke it off because that was just my way of dealing with it, because I didn't know how to deal with it. I didn't know how to, you know, and once again, maybe that's also attributed with just being so young. I think I still do it to some extent, but maybe not as much, but especially then because I didn't really have the tools necessary to really, you know, put into words how I was feeling or like how I wanted to deal with something. Like I said, the relationship in whole, like there was good, there was bad, I think, but I don't remember because it has been so long, but I do feel like I am the one who initiated the breakup, you know, and I don't even remember the circumstances of what the breakup necessarily was, but like I said, I just remember it was around the time I was like 18, and I think maybe like that also plays a role in our post breakup of we stayed friends. That's another lesson I've also talked about before. Like, this relationship taught me I should give myself distance. That's something I actually didn't even learn till like years and years later, like until we like weren't even talking anymore, where I learned like, hey, I made a mistake of, because I had mixed results when it came to being friends with exes prior to her, where it's like one ex, we stayed friendly terms, but we never communicated much, so it never really came up. The other person, it was a rocky friendship, and it just like, once again, very much like with Ashley, like this previous relationship, I took a lot of my issues out and lashed out against someone who didn't deserve it. It's kind of that, and you know, I'll get more into it when it comes to the Ashley situation in particular. I'm sorry, like I said, I'm just going to be all over the place because it's just like off the top of my head. I had rough ideas of what I wanted to say, but now it's just kind of, when you're in the moment, it's all slipping away. My point I was making before was like, I didn't give myself enough time post the breakup. So from my 18 to 22, 23, where we were still friends and stuff, I was still in love with her. She'd already moved on. She, you know, her relationship situations are what they are, and I'm like, I just never got over her. Oh, I felt this way. I want to feel this way again. I want to not feel the way I'm feeling right now. I'm sad. I'm heartbroken, and every time I'm talking to this person, I'm just reminded over and over again why I love them. Oh, I messed up. Why did I break it up with her? Was it just because where we were in a relationship? Did I just feel bad, and was it just because I felt like I was dragging her down? Like, I can't fully tell you where I was at that time. I was a mess emotionally and mentally. She plays in a role into like one of the last times we talked, like I said, when I was like 22 or 23, I was in a dark place, like at the time, the last time we talked, and it was, it's a weird association, but it was like around the time Robin Williams died. Because of his circumstances and just my own personal like association with like death and suicide, and just I was like, that was just like, I don't know, I was already in a bad place. That just like sent me spiraling in this dark place, and I was just like, I remember I had like this really terrible day of just absolute dread, of just worthlessness, and just like, fuck everything, nothing matters, I don't matter. Like, I had that type of feeling, and it was just one of those things of, I messaged her and said, I don't even remember all I said, but like a lot of like my issues, once again, it's years of us staying friends after the breakup, of me still being in love with her, and then a lot that love being twisted and contorted, and having these mixed feelings of blaming her for stuff that wasn't her fault. Like, all that came out in like a message, and that was just it. That was the last thing I ever said to her, last time we'd ever talked. And it's just, I was going through something, but I couldn't bring myself to be like, hey, I never reached out immediately to be like, hey, I'm sorry about that. I was in a dark place. I don't know why I said what I said, but I wanted to like not feel the way I felt anymore, but also I was just kind of giving up. Like I said, it was just one fucking day of just pure dread, and just being like sitting on my floor, being contemplating like, should this be the day I fucking end it all? Once again, I'm not putting that on her. It's not her fault. She just happened to be like the target of so much of my like my anger and disgust with myself and my feelings of worthlessness. And it's just that's one of those things I've tried to get better at. And I still, even to this day, 31, I still suffer of like lashing out at people because of my own insecurities. People have never wronged me. Yeah, I mean, people have wronged me, sure. Like, people have done stuff that's kind of pissed me off. But like, the people I've lashed out over the years at, like, they've never deserved it. It's just my own frustrations. And then, like, you know, when I'm so mad, because I can go from annoyed to agitated to pissed off. Like, I have anger issues, and that's something I've recognized about me too. But it also stems from, you know, like, isn't the whole adage like depression is anger turned inwards? And I'm very angry with myself. I've always been very angry at myself because I don't like myself. It's a very deep seated self-esteem issues that I believe I have. And once again, like, I had this dread of worthlessness that no one puts it on me. Like, no one has ever told me I am not good enough, that I am worthless. No one's ever instilled that in me. I've always been the one that's done that, and I've built my life in a way that reinforces that feeling of like, oh, see, I was right. I am worthless. I knew I was worthless all along. I feel the need to make my life reflect that feeling. And just so I drown deeper and deeper and deeper into that. And that's where I feel like that lashing out at her was like something she didn't deserve. It came out of nowhere, you know, rather than talking it out like a sensible person. I just like flew off the handle. Once again, it's like not like I called her or like it's just like I said, it's just I like sent a single message that it's like, it's one of the biggest regrets in my life. I know, once again, this is something from years ago, but this is how I'm feeling. This is how I've always felt. And I have reached out. I have apologized subsequently since, but you know, it was kind of a one-sided situation, which I hold no own, like she doesn't owe me anything in that situation. Cause you know, apologies ends up being that situation of, hey, am I apologizing out of a necessity, out of sincerity, which I believe there is sincerity in apologizing, but there's also the selfishness of I feel guilty and I want to alleviate my own conscience by apologizing. I want you to be like, it's okay, or you forgive me. I've fortunately been in a situation where I've been able to apologize to an ex and she accepted it, you know? So, you know, there's that. But this one as well, and those things I never got closure on, but I said what I needed to say, and how she takes it, that's her. Like, I can't be like, oh, you like tell me you forgive me. Like, no, she doesn't owe me that, and she doesn't have to forgive me. She doesn't owe me forgiveness. Whatever wrongs I've done to her or said to her, and how things played out between us, how she dealt with it, how she felt with it is hers. It's not my right to kind of take that to be like, well, I want you to respond in this way. I want to feel better about how things played out. So that's kind of something I've had to deal with over the years. And like I said, I don't want to minimize how it is. I mean, I want to talk about how I feel about it, how I continue to feel about it. But I've said what I said, and that's all there is to it. I can really do. Jesus, kind of got choked up there a little bit. But that's all I can really do about it, and I've kind of accepted it. Like, this was like a couple years ago. It's been probably like, I don't know, maybe 3-4 years ago at the time we recording this. Like I said, this is maybe what 27, 28 or something like that. A couple years later, finally reaching out and stuff like that. It's just like that regret of, I wish I'd handled things so differently. You know, it's like, it's just that the hindsight is always going to be 2020 when you realize, like, man, like, I recognize the signs of, oh, like I said, I was doing this because of my own insecurity. That's always been the way. Like, I always hate myself for that. I'm like, I always treat people the shittiest when I'm feeling the shittiest. And maybe that's just the universal thing of like, yeah, we all lash out at people because that stems from something. It's not always because they wronged you in some capacities, and sometimes it is. But in my experience, anytime I've ever lashed out at someone, taken something out on someone, it's never because they deserved it. You know, it's all, once again, very rare times, but when it comes to relationships, no, it's always been like, I lashed out at this person because I was going through something, but I didn't have the wherewithal, the emotional, and you know, the emotional intelligence to be like, hey, I'm sorry, I'm going through something, I want to talk this out. I didn't have it in me to be brave enough to be like, hey, I'm sorry what I did, can we talk this out? I'm you know, and it's something I carried with me because I want to make sure that I try to be better about that. But like I said, I still struggle with it. Not even just in a like intimate relationship, but even just like family, I still have that issue with sometimes where I'll lash out, and it's not the easiest thing to swallow my pride and admit that but also like, I feel like, do I have the right to, you know? It's just, it comes from this worthlessness of, I'm not important enough for, like, you know, it's not even admitting I'm wrong. Maybe some level it is that, but it's also just I can't put into words why I do that. Like why I can't just ever admit it. Maybe it is, like I said, an ego thing. Maybe it's a pride thing. But it's just like I just wallow in my sadness, because usually when it happens, I'm immediately afterwards like, I fucked up. I wish I need to apologize, but I can't bring myself to do it. I'd rather just wallow in my own self-pity, because that's my comfort. That's my comfort zone. It's kind of almost, sadly in a way, I feel like sometimes it can be my default. I don't know if it's always my default, but it's just like the way I've always talked about myself has always been like, I feel like I am a pessimist with optimistic tendencies. I feel like I view things in a very negative light. But like sometimes like I can be hopeful when it comes to the weirdest things, but when it comes, in some ways, like when it comes to the world, I can be hopeful and very naive and optimistic. But like when it comes to me personally, I'm always pessimistic. I never, once again, just that dread of self, like worthlessness, you know, and that's the only way I can put it. I don't know. It's just I don't even really know what I'm saying anymore. But it's like I say, I've dived deeper and deeper into my own metaphorical shell. Of not being able to come out of it, and it's just like, once again, I don't blame that relationship. I blame me, because I have to take personal responsibility for like, no one controls me but me. I make decisions about how I interact with the world and how I interact with people, and like that, because you know, it's not even just, it's harder with personal relationships with like a significant other, but I've always struggled with people. I've always put up a proverbial wall in a lot of ways, and I've always bottled stuff up and I've kept stuff to myself. But I feel like it's even more apparent in like intimate relationships with, like I said, girlfriends and stuff, where I realize like, oh shit, like I'm doing that. I feel like on a daily basis, I don't always recognize the signs, but I mean, because like I said, I've always been the shut-in. I've kept to myself. Like my family would always tell you for the years, it's just like, yeah, I stay at home and I keep to myself. That's always been me, because, you know, whether it's a fear of rejection from the world, I'm like, oh, the world, no one likes me, no one cares about me. Like I stay kind of talking about that relationship. I've talked about this years and years ago, but I had to have someone point out to me that Ashley might be into me, because someone was like, you know, I actually had an ex be like, oh, like, you know, an ex I was friends with at the time was reading some messages back and forth between me, and like we were just hanging out, and she was like, hey, you recognize like the way she talks to you? I think she's kind of into you. It's one of those weird like cliche, like it almost feels like a rom-com moment, or even something you see on an anime or manga, where it's like, no, what? No, like I have such deep-seated issues that like I can't even recognize the signs that someone might like me, because I can't even fathom anyone ever liking me. I'm like, what? No way anyone would ever waste their time on a fucking loser like me. Like, why would anyone ever? There's nothing about me that's redeemable or likable, you know? So like, to me, like I come from such a perspective of having such a low opinion of myself. I mean, my family will even tell you, even from a young age, there was an incident where I remember writing these notes to my family, like, no one loves me, no one cares about me. Like, I was like in elementary school writing, maybe even middle school writing notes like this. I can't remember, but I remember I put them in such a place. Like, I don't know if I wanted my family to find them. Maybe I did on some level when my family found them, and that became a whole bigger thing. But I'm like, yeah, it should be a bigger thing of like, no kid should be like, oh, I'm feeling worthless, no one loves me, no one cares about me. I recognize my family does. Like, I recognize that they love me and they care about me and they want what's best for me, but it doesn't change the fact is that I don't love me and I don't care about me, and because of that, I attribute it to everyone else in my life, whether it's family members, whether it's friends, whether it's, you know, significant others. Like, do I give anyone an opportunity to be there for me? No, because I just assume no one's gonna be there. Like, you know, like it's almost like this weird abandonment thing I have. Like, I've never been abandoned in my life. My people have always been there for me when I needed them to be, but I have this deep-seated thing of, oh, no one's gonna stick around. Why would anyone stick around for you? You're not worth sticking around for. You know, that I think speaks volumes in itself. And it's just like, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not even, I don't know if this is partially my issue too. I feel like I psychoanalyze myself so much, but it's just, I just want to talk about how I feel, because I don't always do it, and try to give you some insight into how my brain is processing this, and not saying I'm processing it the right way, or I'm interpreting things the right way. That's up to a therapist to interpret, and I'm sure, and so on, you know. It just, like I said, it's just word vomit at this point in time, of just saying what what's there, what's always permeated my mind, what's always like rummaging through my mind, because my mind is always wondering like all the time. Like that's also a thing. I have a hard time quieting my brain. I'm always thinking about, this is where you go into like the whole pessimistic angle, especially with my life of, I always focus on the negative stuff. Like even using relationships, like using Ashley, for example, for a couple years, all I ever did was focus on the negative aspects of like, oh yeah, like any disagreements we had and how the relationship broke out and any fights and this and that. But I never focused on like, nah, the good. It was a good relationship, like, you know, and I had fun. And like I said, I fell in like madly in love with someone for the first time in my life. I'd loved some people before, but I'd never loved anyone at that point in my life to that extent. And like I said, like, you know, maybe it's young love, but I don't want to just delineate it to just that. But I focus always on the negative of every mistake I've ever made. And yes, like the only way to not learn from a mistake is to not repeat a mistake. You have to learn from it, right? But it's still like, that's all I ever do. Things years and years and years removed, I still think about. I think about shit from middle school of like, oh, I did this cringy thing, because I can never let myself forget anything, because like I feel this incessant need to beat myself down with every like terrible thing I've ever done or said, and just feel like I deserve. Like some stuff, it's like, it's not even some, most things, it's just stuff like, it's nothing significant enough of why are you holding on to that. Like I can't tell you why I'm holding on to it, because I feel like I should never forget, and I feel this incessant need to make myself feel bad, and I don't know whether that's just my self-hatred for myself or what. I can't tell you. It's just, I like to say, I feel like I've lost the plot in this video, and I said I would, but it's just, like I said, that's why I feel like this relationship is significant and why it holds such weight to me, because I feel like I learned so much. And maybe me drowning in the past, like I said, someone will be like, well, until I'm able to let that fully go, you know, something that's all these decades old, like because I put such like weight on it like that, the lessons I learned from it, like I never just take the lessons and go on. I have to drown in all the anger and anguish and sadness and self-dread associated with learning those lessons. I can't just take the lesson itself and move on. I have to like almost revel, not even revel, but just like I said, drown and immerse myself in those feelings of associated with those lessons, rather than just taking the lessons themselves and bounce. You know, it's just, I think that's what it kind of comes from. So that's where the thing of like, I feel like, once again, not a professional, not a psychologist, not a therapist, but that's where I kind of feel like maybe that is kind of like the bad thing of I put such weight of importance to this relationship in that regard. I don't know. You know, maybe that is just a manifestation of my inability to let go, which I think kind of pops up in other aspects of my life. I don't know. I'm sure there's so much more I wanted to say about this, but it's just like I've been running my mouth for so long, and there are no time restraints on this. I could say what I want. This video can be however long I want it to be. Like I said, it's just pure, I've said it time and time again, it's just pure word vomit of just like, I don't know. I've said what I've said. I've said what I've thought, what I'm thinking, how I'm feeling, how I thought I felt, how I thought. And you know, and like I said, I'm uploading this to the internet, so whatever comes of it, comes of it. I can't be like, well, don't psychoanalyze me, don't put your perspective out there. I wasn't asking for your perspective. It's like, well, maybe on some level I was if I'm uploading it, but you know, the internet's going to do what the internet's going to do. Like, you know, it's insignificant. Like, I don't have like enough people like who are going to come across this video. Probably no one will. This video will probably sit on this platform like never getting above a single view. It's fine. It is what it is. It's just like I just needed some outlet, just to force myself in a way to talk about it in a way I feel like any other way I wouldn't. Once again, this is the healthiest way to go about this. No, and it's, you know, I didn't go over every single like grievance I have about myself in my life. I haven't gone over every grievance I have in life, but it's just stuff associated about this one thing, this one relationship, and how I feel like it's permeated and how it has like expounded like lessons upon me, like over the years and stuff, and what I like go back to well and pick from, like, oh, this and this, and how I should handle myself in the future, how I have handled myself in those years, and the lessons I learned of, oh, like, well, I took this lesson from that relationship, well, this is me taking a lesson from me taking a lesson from that relationship. It's a whole fucking thing. So like I said, this is what it is. So I don't know what else to really say about it. Maybe I'll do more videos like this in the future. I don't know. I stopped a couple years ago getting too, like, I sprinkle it in my reviews and my discussions here and there, but I typically don't do a lot of videos about talking about myself because I just don't think there's anything interesting enough about my life for me to really merit a video in that capacity. So that's why I really don't. That's not what this channel's about. But maybe I'll do some stuff like this in the future. I don't know. This might just be a one-off thing. Don't expect this to be a regular thing, but you know, maybe it could be a regular thing. I don't know. This is this. So, but yeah, that's all I think I wanted to talk about. So, for the most part, I guess. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.